Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Paul. After trying for over a year to fix what felt like a dying marriage, my wife, Sabrina, decided to put him on a literal 90-day trial. And after the trial, she would decide if we'd keep being husband and wife. That moment, for me, was the final sign that there was truly nothing left to salvage out of this marriage. I made my first move after that, and she did not take it lightly. Not one bit. But I'll walk you through everything that happened. I have been married to Sabrina for 6 years. For a long time, I believed that she was the one I'd grow old with. The truth is, our marriage didn't start out broken. In fact, the beginning was the complete opposite. We were happy. Sabrina was warm, thoughtful, and paid attention to the little things. I remember those early years clearly because we moved like a team. We made joint decisions about everything. She didn't make me feel like I was doing life alone. And honestly, for a guy like me, that meant everything. You see, I didn't grow up in a house where people stuck around. My parents split when I was young, and I watched my childhood home turn into a war zone of silence, shouting, and emotional disconnect. So even before I ever thought about marriage, I made myself a promise. I will not bring a child into that kind of chaos. I will not become a man who walks away from his family. That promise shaped the kind of husband I tried to be. I wasn't just in it for love. I was in it for commitment, for structure, for stability, stuff I didn't have growing up. That meant when I married Sabrina, I gave it my all, and I worked hard. I paid more than half of everything we needed. I just felt like this is what a man does when he loves his wife. I wanted to be dependable. I wanted her to feel safe with me, supported. I believed deep down that if I poured into the relationship, if I kept showing up, then no matter what life threw at us, we'd survive it together. That belief kept me going for a long time, probably longer than I should have kept going, if I'm being honest. But after our 5th anniversary, things began to change. It started with the way she began talking, the things she listened to. I noticed she was constantly tuned into these empowerment podcasts that talked about relationships like they were business transactions, where one side, usually the woman, should always be getting more, doing less, and questioning everything the man does. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for growth, and I have no problem with people trying to improve their lives or stand up for themselves. But what Sabrina was absorbing wasn't healthy. Every conversation she had with me started sounding like it was filtered through a lens of, "What are you doing for me lately?" It became like I was supposed to constantly prove my value just to keep my place. She started following these influencers who spoke with this constant tone of, "You deserve more, don't settle. You owe him nothing. Your happiness comes first." It sounds nice until you realize that happiness is defined by how much someone else can give you, without ever checking yourself. And naturally, the first area where the complaints started pouring in was the house chores. She told me I wasn't doing enough. Now, I could have gotten defensive, and trust me, part of me wanted to, especially on those nights I came home completely drained after long shifts, but instead, I took a step back. I thought, maybe she's right. Maybe I could do more. So I did. I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed, and if pitching in more would make her feel loved and supported, I was willing to do that. Whatever she pointed out, I tried to take care of it. But no matter how much I did, it was like I was invisible. My effort didn't matter. Every little disagreement we had would end with her withdrawing for days. Long stretches of silence where she barely acknowledged me in the house. And when we did have company, she found ways to take jabs at me in front of her friends. It got to a point where even compliments were wasted. Physical affection became rare, too. And when it happened, it wasn't because we were connecting. It was only when she felt like it or when she was in the mood. It stopped feeling like love and started feeling like a reward I had to earn. And slowly, I found myself walking on eggshells, just trying to avoid anything that might set her off or trigger one of those long, cold silences again. She started having nights out. At first, it was once in a while when she claimed to have drinks with coworkers, a girls' dinner. But it became frequent. She'd leave and come back late without saying much. When I asked, she'd brush it off. And even though it made me feel uneasy, I didn't press. I still believed we could fix this, that this was just a phase. I didn't want to accuse her of anything or turn our home into a battlefield. I tried to fix things one evening when I said, "Let's renew our vows." I told her if we went back to why we fell in love in the first place, we could find our way forward. I even suggested therapy. Told her we didn't need to be broken to benefit from it, that it could help us communicate better, clear out whatever was blocking us. I said we could just talk openly, without judgment or point scoring. She laughed, then looked me dead in the eye and said, "That sounds like a lot of work." And that stung more than I expected. A few days later, I had just finished my dinner alone when she came to meet me with a folder, sat down and opened it like we were about to review quarterly reports. She said, "Instead of all that talking and therapy you're so into, we're going to do a 90-day trial. During that time, you'll need to prove yourself. At the end of it, I'll decide if we stay married." I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say at first. Then she added, "I'll be using the guest bedroom during this time. This is for your benefit. Let's treat this like grown-ups." I nodded. There was no need to argue because I understood something in that moment. I had been so terrified of divorce, and she knew she could keep moving the line, and I'd keep chasing it. What she didn't realize was that she'd already failed because I was done taking this. I sat with that realization for the rest of the night. Quiet, calm, and for the first time in a long time, clear. After that night, I started planning in silence. The very next day, I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney. I sat across from the lawyer and explained everything. The attorney listened and told me to start documenting everything. Every text, every interaction, every shift in her behavior. He said, "Don't confront her. Just observe, record, build your case." And I did exactly that. With the attorney's help, I also started reviewing our finances. I just wanted to understand what I could protect. What was jointly owned? What was mine before we got married? What accounts was she dipping into without telling me? Emotionally, I began detaching, too. I stopped trying to initiate affection or force awkward conversations she clearly didn't want to have. I stopped reading meaning into her mood swings. Instead, I poured all that energy back into myself. I signed up for a gym membership again. I started going 3 times a week. I bought myself a new pair of running shoes and even started meal prepping. Slowly, I began to feel a little more like me again. On weekends, I picked up hobbies I hadn't touched in years. By the second month of the trial, I had built a quiet support system. At home, I kept the peace. I didn't change much in my behavior, not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to tip her off. I still greeted her and kept things cordial. But I was no longer begging for connection, and I was no longer dancing for her approval. She, on the other hand, became even more dismissive, more confident. Her nights out became more frequent. Sometimes she'd drop sarcastic lines like, "You're lucky I'm giving this marriage a chance." I would just smile and say, "Sure." I wasn't reactive anymore. I had a calm that she couldn't understand, and it made her uncomfortable. She would glance at me across the room with suspicion, like she was trying to figure out what had changed. She didn't realize the game she set in motion was the one I would finish on my own terms. About 2 weeks before the so-called 90-day trial my wife put me on was supposed to end, she came back from yet another one of her mysterious retreats. She said it was work-related, but honestly, by this point, I had stopped trying to make sense of her excuses. This last trip had lasted a week. I didn't text, didn't call. I didn't care to. Not anymore. My focus had shifted. That night, she was in the guest bedroom unpacking her things. I stood for a moment, just watching her through the half-open door. I knocked gently. She looked up and saw me standing there with a folder in my hand. I walked in slowly. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I've enjoyed playing your little game. But here's what we're going to do." Her smile faded. I handed her the documents. "These are the divorce papers. They're signed. They've already been filed. This marriage is over." She froze. Just stood there, staring at the papers like they were written in another language. I don't think she expected me to actually end it. She thought I was still that man trying to hold on to something broken. After a few long seconds, she finally managed to speak. "Wait, are you serious?" I didn't flinch. "Yes. I'm dead serious. The trial is over. And I've chosen peace." That's when she snapped. Or, at least tried to. She gave me this glare and said, "Fine. You were never man enough anyway." I just smiled, then it should be easy to move on, I told her and walked away. Sabrina didn't take it well. So, she went straight into attack mode. Next thing I know, I'm being served back with legal documents filled with accusations that felt like they were pulled from thin air. Stuff that just didn't happen. Claims about emotional neglect, financial control, and even vague implications that I was aggressive during disagreements. At first, I was shocked, then I got angry. But I had to remind myself this wasn't personal anymore. It was strategic. She was trying to build a case. A false one. I had to protect myself. So I did what any reasonable man would do when backed into a corner. I got smart. I got a private investigator to start digging, quietly and carefully cross-checked her work trips, took a second look at her social patterns, where she was really spending her nights. And it didn't take long before everything started to fall apart for her. Turns out, Sabrina had been having a months-long affair. She was seeing someone else while I was still under the same roof, trying to win her back. It was clear that the 90-day trial wasn't about saving the marriage. Looking back now, it was nothing more than a delay tactic. She was buying time, probably figuring out how to position herself better for the inevitable divorce she already had in mind. When I brought that evidence to court, the tone shifted completely. Her lawyer tried to pivot, to downplay, but the facts spoke for themselves. It was no longer a case of, he said, she said. It was a case of betrayal, and that changed everything. Eventually, the court ruled on the division of assets months later. Despite all her bold claims and smug little hints during our trial period about how she'd walk away with more, how I'd regret not trying harder, it became clear to her. She didn't get as much as she expected. The court saw through the smoke and mirrors, and that smug confidence she had evaporated the moment the final verdict came down. I sat there quietly as it all unfolded. I walked away knowing I had done everything I could, and when it was time to stand up for myself, I did. Looking back now, I realize I should have left a long time ago. It's easy to see that in hindsight. But when you're in the middle of something, especially something like a marriage, you keep trying. You keep hoping things will turn around. But this hope costs you time, peace, and a piece of yourself you don't even notice are missing until you're completely drained. For me, it was fear. Fear of becoming another failed statistic. Fear of disappointing my parents, even though they divorced. Fear of admitting that I married someone who, over time, stopped choosing me. I was scared to walk away, not because I didn't know what I had to do, but because I didn't want to accept that I had done all I could, and it still wasn't enough. That fear kept me frozen, and Sabrina knew it. She knew I was afraid of divorce, afraid of the stigma, afraid of breaking up a home. And she used that fear to push every boundary, like testing how far she could go before I'd finally push back. But eventually, even the most patient man reaches his limit. When I handed her those divorce papers, I chose myself. I'd rather be alone and rebuilding than stay married to someone who made me feel like I wasn't even worth the fight. I had to stop waiting for her to change, stop waiting for her to appreciate me, to care, to act like my partner again. I won't lie and say I have everything figured out now. I don't. I don't know what's coming next for me. I don't have a perfect plan or a new love interest waiting around the corner. What I do have, though, is peace and freedom. And I'll be real with you, it feels good. Whatever lies ahead, I welcome it, even the uncertainty. Because whatever's out there has to be better than living every day with someone who looked at me like I was a burden instead of a blessing. And for anyone out there holding on, hoping someone will come back to who they used to be, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything that happened? Do you think I made the right decision? Or maybe there's something you would have done differently. I'd really appreciate your thoughts, your experiences, even if they're hard to say. Drop them in the comments. Let's have a real conversation. If you're watching this and you're in a situation that feels heavy, Maybe it's time you ask yourself the same thing. Is what you're holding on to giving you life? Or is it slowly draining you day by day? Be honest with yourself. Because I wasn't not for a long time. And when I finally was, it changed everything. Thank you again for being here, for watching, for listening. If this story meant something to you, if it helped you see something clearer or feel a little less alone, please like the video and share it. Someone else out there might need to hear it, too. I appreciate you all, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.